Hello, everyone. It's Mark Wilkinson here. Just having a slight bit of interesting thing there with the technology. It tried to kick me out and something, but I'm back on now. That's good. I've got Instagram over here. I've got everyone else over here, from Facebook to LinkedIn to YouTube to Twitter. It's Wednesday evening. Every Wednesday evening we do Straight Talking. Here with me, Mark Wilkinson. We're live from London across all the social media platforms. So grateful for the responses we've had from all of you guys so far. It's been amazing. We've had great interviews with Danny Ramplin. We've had great interviews with Harry Singer, Pashmina Pash. We've had so many great people. And tonight I'm really pleased to welcome Dimple Thakrar to the stream with me. We're going to go through a great interview together, but a little bit about Dimple before I bring her in. She's a relationship and love coach. She's a best-selling author, a global speaker, a healer, and someone who is just fascinating to listen to. You're going to absolutely love Dimple. So I'm going to bring her in now. Here she is. Hello, Dimple. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you, Mark?
Nice excellent. I'm excellent. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's great to see you too. Whereabouts?
Me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to have you here. Whereabouts in the world are you right now?
So I am currently in Portobello, Spain.
Nice. So. Yes. Okay. And you're enjoying that? And what are you doing there?
Interesting. I'll tell you very quickly the story. So back in June, July, I said to my husband, I need to be by the ocean, babe, to write my third book. And just left it at that, because this is something key to note, that men love to solve problems. When we solve them for them, they hate it. So I just left that out there, right? Didn't think anything of it. And then it was our 25th wedding anniversary in August. And he said to me, we're going to Spain next week for a month. Pack your things, let's go. And I was like, oh, wow. So that was the whole of September. Anyway, it's almost December and we're still here.
Still there, still writing. I love it. Good for you. Good for you. So look, I mean, welcome to Straight Talking. We've had some great responses from all over the world. Loads of people here on Instagram listening to you as well. And obviously we've got everyone else joining us from all of the Facebook streams. So fantastic to have you here. I've got a few questions, as I always do. You know, it's an interview. We need to talk about stuff, don't we? So favorite music, you know my background, you know the book's called Life Remixed. You know I was a DJ and a record producer and still do a little bit here and there. So, you know, what's your favorite tune and why? Or is there a genre, or what is it about music that really works for you?
Oh, the genre would have to be 70s.
Nice.
And Motown and soul and all that kind of, you know. And for me, the reason for it is because the words, the lyrics, the vibe, the fact that you can actually hear the words. Sounded really old. So I could sing along, right? So I'm just looking at my phone for the songs, because I have a whole playlist that my daughter made for me, my eldest daughter, and she's named it Songs My Mum Would Sing. So that just sums up.
That's cool. I mean, that's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it was always about the uplifting songs. You know, I always loved the uplifting tunes. You know, that was the thing for me. You know, I never really loved the ballads. For me, it was always about the soul,
the beat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then you can have a boogie too, right? Yeah, so
that's it.
I do have one particular song called. It's from Dinah Ross. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. I'm Coming Out, and cool. It's. Yeah, right. That song for me absolutely signifies the transition for me of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, about me stepping into my true power. So that for me, I'm Coming Out was like
nice, and has been used in the gay nightclubs for many years, about obviously coming out and showing yourself, which is
showing your truth, who you actually are, right? Yeah. So true, Mark. Never thought about it like that. Thank you. Yes, so true.
Powerful song. Very, very powerful song that is. Yeah. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about your life and your career. Of course, I know that you're an author. I know you're a Tony Robbins Platinum partner. You know, I know some great things about you, but let's assume that the guys that are listening here, they don't know enough about you and what you do. You know, let's talk about your life, your story, how you got to this point, and also how you can help and what you do.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Well, firstly, thank you to your audience for their time today, for gifting us their time. It truly, you know, when somebody decides to spend time with you, that means a lot. So thank you for that first. And so my story, I've been coaching now for about 25 years. I started off as a dietitian working in the NHS. And really, when I look back, that was where all my apprenticeship was, around understanding people, understanding the dynamics, because I worked with a group of people that were really dying prematurely, people that were dying from motor neuron disease, Parkinson's, MS, stroke. So that was my speciality. So really going deep into people's lives. I used to visit their homes and spend a lot of time with them. And throughout that time, I was married to a beautiful human being who I would address as a serial entrepreneur looking back now. He could never work for anybody. And at the beginning of our marriage, I forced him to work for somebody. It was the worst thing that I could have ever done. 3 months of hell. He lost who he was. And also the trials and tribulations of being the spouse of an entrepreneur is tough. I have 2 girls, and the first daughter was born, and he didn't see her for 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was hard. That was hard. And at the same time, I had postnatal depression. So it was really tough. I felt very isolated. And that was the start of building up a lot of resentment and a lot of blame and feelings of it's easy for him and it's okay for him. I'm the one that had to like lose my body and, you know, and then lose my identity and lose who I was. And I didn't really want children. So you can see the picture now starting to evolve. And so the marriage was up and down, I would say. It was a roller coaster. When it was good, it was amazing. And when it was bad, it was terrible. And the problem was the balance shifted more and more. There were more bad days than good days. And so you're all probably going, well, you're a relationship coach. Why do you not know how to do this, right? At that time, my speciality wasn't intimate relationships. It was very generalized. And my first book was actually on your relationship with food and yourself. So, while doing all this stuff, while I was helping others, it's easy to help others because you're not emotionally attached. It's a lot harder to work on yourself, a lot harder. And while I still did a lot of working on myself, I had blind spots.
Yeah.
I'm human, right? I had blind spots. I couldn't see what I couldn't see. And that's why you get a coach. That's why you get mentors, right?
Exactly.
To help you see what you don't see, to help you see those blind spots. And so on our 20th wedding anniversary, we decided that enough was enough. We were done.
Wow. After 20 years, yeah.
We were done. And we were like, right, okay, we love each other. Love is not the issue. Like, I married my soulmate. We love each other to bits, but we don't know how to relate to each other. We don't know how to be together and make each other happy.
After 20 years of marriage as well, yeah. Yeah, tough.
Yeah, tough, yeah. We went through a lot together. Within the first year of our marriage, I lost my mum prematurely. There was a lot of stuff that we went through that most couples don't go through over a lifetime. We went through in a very short period of time, but we didn't have the tools, the strategies, the communication skills to understand how to navigate that. So on our 20th wedding anniversary, we decided to put a plan in place to exit our marriage, like a business strategy. So on our 25th wedding anniversary, we were going to get a divorce. We were planning how to split the assets, how to everything. And that would mean that both our girls, because we had 2 children by this point, would be adults.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it? It's tough to hear that, you know, after a 20-year marriage, to then plan a 5-year separation, as in take 5 years to separate. You know, I mean, you must have been, you were just totally, that's it, we are done. It's not going to change, and that's, you know, I'm gonna move on, and that's the way that you decided that between both of you.
Yeah, because he was exhausted.
Yeah,
he was exhausted, and I just was done with him not changing.
Because he wasn't necessarily being what you wanted him to be at that. Yeah.
And and that's the way I looked at it. And when as I tell my story, it'll all start to make sense. I was done with him not wanting to change, right? Yeah. That's how I perceived it then.
I think a lot of women, Dimple, I think a lot of women will relate, to this.
Yeah. I was done. Yeah. And so there was something that, and I can only call it divine intervention, because at the time I had a business coach, because I just started my own business. And so I hired a business coach, and she introduced me to somebody called Tony Robbins, and no idea who he was. Watched him on YouTube a little bit, really liked his vibe, realized that he was coming to London. So I was 7 months into my business, and I went along to his event in London, thinking, well, you know, really in the back of my mind, I was thinking, is this going to like help me or not? But you know, I'm a firm believer in personal development. You grow constantly, otherwise you can't reciprocate that to your clients.
You're growing or you're dying, one or the other.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So then I went along to his UPW, and got the best seat, everything. And I thought I paid a lot of money. It was like nearly $4,000 for the best seat in the house. What I thought was the best seat in the house.
Right up the
front. Turns out,
right
at the front. Turns out it wasn't right at the front. There was another level called Platinum Partners.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it, right at the front. So within the first day, they were advertising Platinum Partners, and I was like, right, I'm doing that. I am doing that, right?
And was your husband actually there with you? Not on the first time you went to see Tony Robbins, you were just there on your own?
I was the first event I was on my own.
Sure.
So because this is where the story really starts. On the second day, it was midnight, and for anybody who hasn't been to a Tony Robbins event, it's full on. Like, it's 12 hours solid. There are no breaks.
That's
so
right.
It was midnight, and I just. Have you ever had that feeling where you get pulled to something and you don't know why you're doing it, and it makes no sense, no logical sense whatsoever, but you're pulled, right? I was pulled to the table, I signed, and then I went, shit. Because I went, shit, what have I done? I'm only 7 months into my business. How am I going to pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And how am I going to tell my family? Because Platinum Partners is a 12-month program that you go to access to all of his events around the frigging world.
And it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap.
And it ain't cheap. Let me come to it, right? So I ring my husband up at midnight, and I say to him, babe, I've done something crazy. Please don't shout. No, he doesn't shout. But this is my perception when he raises his voice, right? Sure. Because the tone in my brain is like he's shouting, and it's not. It was the meaning I was putting on that. So I'm on the phone, and he said, listen, I've been traveling around the world, because at this point he'd taken over a new business that was global. So he'd been to various places around the world, right? And he said, I'm really tired. I'm really tired. Just say it. Whatever it is, just say it. Right? And he
Yeah.
said to me, and I said to him, I've joined something called Platinum Partners, Tony Robbins Platinum Partners, and it's $75,000 US. And I just vomited it out. Right?
It ain't cheap.
And that isn't the travel or anything like that.
No,
You have to do that, right? And I vomited it out. And he said, and with hindsight, thinking back, he probably thought I'd had an affair. Right?
Okay.
That was probably his worst nightmare when you think about like the fact that I'm away for 5 days, like I've done something crazy, I'm ringing him at midnight, right?
So 75 grand was a relief. Is that what you're doing?
I don't know. But then anyway, he said to me, and this was the first lesson. Ladies, I want you to hear this. There are clues. This was the first lesson. He said to me, 20 years ago, you took a job and you were the main breadwinner so that I could follow my desire and my dream to build a business. And he said, so the way I see this, it's just an investment now in you. It's your turn.
Lovely. He stepped up, didn't he?
And I just thought, yeah, like Mark, honestly, that was the first lesson. That was the first, even though we're going through a divorce, like we're literally set, like, he's like, I'll back you. I trust you, I'll back you.
Yeah, he showed you, didn't he? He stepped up.
He stepped up. Stepped up. And so that was the first thing. And then, so I went along to some of the events. I'd never traveled on my own before in my life. So I would get lost going to a toilet in a restaurant. Like there were too many doors. Like he'd have to send the girls to get me out, right? Too many doors or mirrors.
Okay. Yeah, right? I hear that. Yeah.
Imagine like I hadn't anticipated that I would have to actually get on a plane myself and travel the world, right? So that was the first growth, right?
Yeah.
And then, so then the next battle was taking him to a relationship event that Tony does only every 2 years, and it's exclusive for his platinum partners, and it's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And we were living in England.
Were you still planning the divorce at this stage? Was this still, you were just still, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd never heard of Tony Robbins. He didn't care who he was, right? I was a super fan at this point, right? All he knew is that this big American guy was making his wife happy every time she went to an event. She'd come back happy. Right? He's like, must be doing something right. So, yeah, he's got the thumbs up. He's got the thumbs up. So basically, cut a long story short, I said to Atul, look, I'm asking you to come to this event. I need you to come. It's the only one you can bring your partners. Now, here's the thing. The universe always sends you tests.
Yeah.
It was at the exact same time as his brand new company's biggest trade show. The trade show was in Cannes, France, and this was in Hawaii, the exact same week. So he had to choose between giving up and letting it was his family's company and 150 employees down, or his wife.
It's a big choice for a man. That is a big choice. Well, not just for a man, just for a masculine person who's successful in business. That's a big choice.
Huge. I chose love. Lesson number 2. Right? Clues. Lesson number 2.
Yeah.
Right? What do we not see? Still didn't see it. It's hindsight that's teaching me this now.
Sure.
I still didn't see it because I was so busy wrapped up in my own story.
Yeah.
Right?
As many people are, Dimple. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what happened? We went along, and day one, everything was amazing. Tony this is Atul's first ever event, right? And at the beginning, Tony says, who in the room doesn't want to be here? Who in the room has had their arm twisted behind their back to get, and right? 3 people stand up in that room. My man is one of them.
Great. I bet you were like, oh no.
And here's what happened, Matt. There was a duality that occurred in me. I could feel it in my body, right? There was one side of me that was like, sit back down, you idiot. Do not embarrass me in front of Tony, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to just think about which energy that was, my masculine or my feminine, right? Yeah. And then there was the other part of me that was like, wow, my hero. He will stand up for He will stand up for whoever he is, and I'm so proud that he's my man. He doesn't care who he is. He will stand up for what he believes is right.
How many people were there, Dimple?
500.
500 people, yeah. So he stood up and he stood in 500 people and said, yeah, you've twisted my arm to be here. My wife's
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and okay. Tony looked him straight in the eye, Mark. He looked him straight in the eye. And and I remember it like the feeling to this moment. It was a beautiful exchange of masculine respect. Right? He acknowledged it. He nodded and he looked him straight in the eye and he said, I understand. I value what you're saying. And he said, all I ask is that you have an open mind.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. An open mind is the key, isn't it? To everything.
To anything. Give it a chance. Just give it a chance, right?
Yeah.
So Atul said, okay, I can do that. Because he didn't challenge him or judge him. He just honored who he was as a man, right?
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful feeling, an exchange of honor, respect, and value. And so Atul sat down. Anyway, everything was great that day. And we were getting on, right? We're a relationship. We're in Hawaii. Come on. It was one of my bucket list places.
What's not to like?
Exactly. The flowers, the sun, everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, those were the days. Anyway,
all that, right? And so we were getting on. Anyway, day 1 in the evening, we had the biggest fight. So day 2, I'm like, you do not need to sit anywhere near me. You get the hell away from me, right? I'm with all my friends because these are all my friends now because I've been on so many events with them, right? So these are all my friends. I sit on the front row with all my buddies. He sits somewhere at the back. We have the biggest fight. He's trying to make it up to me all day. I'm like, we're done. Forget it. I don't need you, right? Pushing him away.
Okay. Yeah.
And 10:30 at night, Tony's been doing about 12-hour day at this point. And we've got a speaker at the front on a large, like Zoom, on a large screen, right? Tony's at the back of the room listening. The speaker finishes, I get up and say something, and it's completely the wrong thing to say. When you say something and you know that the energy and the vibe in the room just goes.
You weren't in a good place, were you? So, you stood up and said what you said, whatever that is, but it wasn't the right thing,
And suddenly I felt Tony's energy from the back of the room.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy, right? And it was like fee, fi, fo, fum, all the way down, right? The aisle. Yeah. And he bellowed, where is Dimple? Right? Right? You do not want to face this guy, right?
Not when you think you've brought some energy down and you think that you think almost like you've made a mistake, but actually I know where the story goes. That's right.
Yeah.
At that moment.
It was so he came round And yeah, I had to, I remember I was in the front row, I had to stand up like this. And I'm looking at him, right? He's 6'7".
Yeah.
I'm 5'2.5". Right? So he's like up here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at him, he's this huge like horse head looking at me, and he starts to let rip. He starts to bellow. Now, I do want to make it clear, there was not one moment in that whole intervention that I felt threatened, unsafe. He was acting in absolute honor and integrity and in service of me.
I think if people haven't seen I'm Not Your Guru on Netflix, if people haven't seen I'm Not Your Guru on Netflix, then they would understand more. If they have seen it, they would understand more about those interventions. The way he does that, you know, he makes people feel uncomfortable. It's not threatening or anything like that, but he makes people feel uncomfortable because that's where you're going to achieve something if you're outside that zone, right?
Exactly. So that's what I do want to make that clear, because it was in no way him. It just wasn't threatening at all.
No.
Right? So, but I was very much, he was getting me to break my pattern. I was very much. And so he's coming at me, right? Lesson number 3. Out of nowhere, something happens, right? He's coming at me and he stops. I'm going, what's going on? This is lesson number 3. I hadn't noticed that my beautiful man out of nowhere had come down the aisle and he was like this.
Fronting up Tony Robbins. Come on then.
Exactly. You nailed it, Matt. That's exactly what he was doing. He's like, nobody messes with my woman. Nobody. Right? Not even Tony effing Robbins. I don't care how big you are.
I don't care who you are.
I don't care who you are. And he was literally coming to fight him.
Well, protect you.
Yeah, to protect me. Exactly, Matt.
Yeah.
And so Tony stopped what he was doing with me and he turned around. And this is the piece that hurts the most. This is the piece. I didn't realize that he had come. I didn't notice that he had come. And it took for Tony to say, is this the man you're talking about not forgiving? Because my comment to the speaker was that you don't have to forgive. Right? One up for me.
Yeah.
Is this the man you're talking about not forgiving? He says, I effing love this brother.
Yeah.
And he put his arm around him and he said, he's shown more courage in his little finger than you have in your entire 20 years of being married. Oh. Right?
Yeah. How'd you take that one?
The truth will set you free.
Yeah, well, you're right.
Right? But the piece is, Matt, that if I hadn't noticed Atul coming at that point, where else in my life have I not noticed him coming to protect me?
Yeah, because you were living, well, you clearly weren't the enlightened, being that you are now, right? You were living a different kind of life.
Totally different. I was living in so much pain and suffering. And when I look back now, and when I analyze that whole scenario, it was because I wasn't in balance with my masculine and feminine.
And this is, it's a great story and I love it. I love it because your man stood up, showed his masculinity and protected you in that. But we're going to talk about masculine and feminine and the fact that we're all made up of masculine and feminine, right?
Both. And I often work with my clients around this because in that moment, at that time, I can honestly say, and the numbers are arbitrary. It's just to illustrate the point. I can honestly say that I was operating in probably 80% masculine and 20% feminine, which for me was completely inauthentic. It wasn't my natural status quo. And the reason I know that, Mark, is because I had severe neck pain for 15 years and there was no organic reason for it, no amount of physio, no nothing, right? And that was due to the fact that my balance was off, right?
Yeah.
So what had occurred in our marriages, I had, after having the children, and it occurs a lot for women and a lot at this period of time, after having our first daughter, he went out to work to provide, because he, in his brain, he's like, I've now got two to feed, right?
Yeah.
And I was feeling vulnerable and having to look after this cub. So I rose in my masculine to protect myself and him and the child, right? He's in his masculine because his authentic balance is mainly masculine, right? We all have both, but the majority for him is masculine. My healthy balance is 80% female and 80% feminine, and 20% masculine, right? So I'm operating in the flip of what's healthy for me. He's still in his masculine. We fought for 10 years. Why? Because masculine and masculine, it's like having a battery, positive and positive.
Yeah.
There's no, it's going to repel. There's no polarity, right?
I read a really interesting thing about that as well. I've read David Dida, The Way of the Superior Man. It's a book I'm sure you're aware of. He offers a really interesting thing with that, whereas I was brought up by my mum, so I was very much in my feminine because my dad wasn't around and my dad died when I was young. So I was brought up by my mother and I was very much in that feminine kind of, I was highly in touch with my emotions. That's what helped me become a DJ and music and uplifting and dancing and partying and all that other stuff. I did all of that. But I totally, not totally, I was 80% in my feminine and 20% in my masculine. And one of the things I didn't realize was that every relationship I got into, we were probably both in that feminine pole quite often, because I went with feminine women. I was in that feminine kind of pole and we were both there in the same thing. And he says in The Superior Man, Way of the Superior Man, he says, if you're not man enough to make some decisions and be there for your feminine partner and offer decisions and help and support and make sure she's safe, seen and heard and love her and feel her and do everything like that, then she will start to accentuate her masculine because you're not doing it. And I do wonder if that's part of your description of what you just said, which was you were both just went into that masculine pole.
Well, no, what happened was because he still remained in his masculine. And I moved into mine because he was not there.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. If he's not there, you have to do it. You have to.
I have to do it.
You have to overcompensate. Yeah.
That's right. And because I had a baby as well, right?
Yeah.
So I went like that, and then that happened for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? The man gets exhausted with it.
Yeah. And he wants his feminine woman.
He wants his feminine woman, but it's so much effort to keep fighting. So in order to gain the polarity, because what does polarity provide? It provides intimacy, sex, passion, right? You don't want to feel like you're sleeping with a man. Bottom line, right? It's not attractive.
Not if you're a heterosexual man. No, you don't. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that, and that's all it is. So what happens and what occurs in a lot of marriages, once you go through a phase of fighting and banging it and trying to wear the trousers and get control, right? And then what occurs is the man drops into his feminine.
Yeah.
Because he wants polarity. So basically, I just grabbed his balls and took them.
Yeah, leave them alone.
So the passion was still there, but it wasn't satisfying because it wasn't authentic.
Yeah.
Right? It served a need.
Yeah. And neither one of you were getting exactly what you needed. Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting, isn't it?
So we lost who we were. It happens all the time in marriages.
Yes,
all
it does.
The time.
Yes.
And what I find is I have 3 categories when people come to me. One is that they're just settling for mediocre. That's what that is, right? 2 is they go seeking elsewhere. They go to find passion elsewhere because they want that. They want to be addressed. Or the 3rd is they separate.
Yeah.
Right?
And then we're done. Yeah, that's right.
And then they're done, right? Now, all of this can be solved and addressed very quickly. What occurred was Tony Robbins had come at me in masculine because that's how strong I was presented in masculine. Right?
Yeah, so he knew he could.
Right, exactly. That was the only way to get through to me. If you have a guy who's being like an idiot, you got to meet him with his energy. You've got to match him, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to listen if you go, oh, they're there.
No.
So that's what he was doing, right? And what he saw in Atul was Atul could absolutely source his masculine because he came to protect me. That came from his gut.
Yeah, well, yeah. Brilliant.
That was his instinct. He wasn't even thinking. That was pure instinct. Right?
Good on him, is what I say.
Yeah. And because he honored himself, right? That's what happened. So then the whole intervention in itself took about 2 hours, and halfway through, Tony actually got me to go down on my hands and knees in front of 500 people and beg for forgiveness to my husband.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
It was right.
Okay, good.
It was right because I had to take ownership of what I had done, just as he had. Just as he had. And I firmly believe that the women have the power in a relationship, but not in a way that you think. Not in the you do what I say way. Not at all. Because think about it, right? Mother Nature. It's not Father Nature.
Well, women are the most creative beings, aren't they? By far. We need women, don't we? So yeah, absolutely.
We've all come out of a woman, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I had a great thing about the 3 feminine needs and the 3 masculine needs. I'm really interested in your take on this. So the 3 feminine needs were sort of whittled down. I know it's not that simple, but it's just an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 feminine needs of safe, seen, and heard.
Yes.
Yeah, and the 3 masculine needs of sex, praise, and respect.
Right.
But that's what I've heard. I'd love your opinion on it. I think and it's worked for me. To be fair, it's worked for me because once I understood the balance within me that I need all 6 of those things. Yeah. But I need less of safe, seen, and heard, and a bit more sex, praise, and respect. And so as a masculine guy, I'm comfortable with that, and my feminine partner, she's comfortable in her feminine pole as well. So I don't know what you think about that, but I think it's a nice explanation.
Yeah, you actually got it from me, Mac, when we did that talk.
I thought it was from the Way of the Superior Man. It was from you. Wow, that's how much impact you had on me.
And I got it from Tony on that. So
there's no copyright. There's no copyright. We're good.
No. But I like to go back to source. I always honor source. Yeah, always. And so what happened? So here's the piece with that. When we talk about it, it's not saying that we don't need anything else. These are the top 3. These are the priority. Right? And the reason for it is that and this is something, it's Alison Armstrong's work, this, again, I always honor the source, is that when we think about our primitiveness, caveman, cavewoman, right? Men are here to procreate. That's their primary function as cave people, right?
Yeah.
So we go back to the history of that, and so therefore that is why sex is their number 1.
Okay.
Right? Because they have to procreate, right? And so the reason that safety is women's number one is because we are prey. We are actually prey. When you think about it, and I learned this in that event, Tony asked the women in the room, how many times do you think about your safety in a day, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 98% of the women in the room said at least more than once in a day, put their hand up, right? Then he asked the men, how often? Nobody put their hand up. And then he asked, well, like in a month? Probably 2 or 3 men put their hand up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Because innate in us, and it was mind-blowing, the men couldn't believe how often the women think about their safety. Right? So it's innate. Those are the top ones. The reason women need to feel seen and heard is because in the tribes, they made a lot of noise and were seen. It scared all the animals away.
Yeah.
Right? So it kept them safe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it worked. Okay, yeah.
Worked. So men need respect and they need praise because that meant they were the king of the tribe, right? They got noticed, they got acknowledged, right? So it meant they looked after their physiques more and they were stronger, and because it was worth it.
Hang on, I need to yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Those are lovely explanations. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's the detail.
That's the reason behind it. And of course, everybody wants to feel safe. Of course they do, including men. Of course, men want to be heard and seen. And of course, women want praise and they want acknowledgement. But it's just not got the same priorities. It's the order. That's all.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
You know, really it's just a baseline thing that if you can at least start to be aware of those 3 things of what your partner needs, then that in itself can improve your relationship.
I think when you go into your relationship with better information, you know, when you go into your intimate relationship, I mean, to be fair, you go into any business relationship, go into any relationship. It doesn't have to be your intimate relationship with your partner, does it? It can be any relationship. But once you get into that partnership, you know, obviously the first person to understand the most about is you. So, you know, if you can understand as much about you as possible, you know, because there are more men, men with more feminine tendencies. I describe myself as one when I was younger because I was brought up by my mum. And there's women with more masculine tendencies, and they're comfortable with that, and that's how they are. And that's, again, there's no judgment. It's just how it is. But the majority, probably 80-20, the majority of relationships are generally split with the masculine partner wants to be or would like to be or perhaps ought to be, you know, being the masculine, you know, offering decisions, being loving, being present, being that man that actually brings, you know, the love and everything into the relationship, that the woman, the feminine partner can then feel safe, seen and heard, and can relax into her femininity, which is what we really want, by the way, masculine men. That's what we want. We want our women partners. We don't want them to turn into, like, you know, masculine, you know, ball breakers. We want them to turn into, like, beautiful feminine, you know, spiritual people, you know, and that's what we want. So, but if you go in with that kind of understanding of yourself, even just this, you know, there's a lot more detail that we both offer in coaching and helping people. But the thing is that, you know, if you go in even with the slightest amount of kind of self-awareness of going into something, you can make a better relationship for yourself. And I love the description that your intimate relationship is your foundation.
Yes.
Without it, the rest of life becomes very, very complicated.
Yeah, it's a model that I've developed, actually, which is the foundation of your life is your relationship. First you, and then your intimate, and then whichever house you building, you build on that. And that was the problem in our relationship, was that our foundation was rocky. It wasn't stable. So we kept building this house of family, businesses, and it would reach a certain level, so number of floors, and then it would collapse. Yeah. And so once my husband and I had built this solid foundation of ourselves and then the relationship, Our businesses skyrocketed. Our family life skyrocketed. Our happiness skyrocketed.
Amazing.
And it continues to, because the foundation is solid.
And I think that's so important. If once you can get that, and once you get that foundation, it's like building a building. You know, we do properties and stuff like that. But you build the foundations, and then you build up from there. And so many people go into relationships when they're like, 20 or 25. I mean, God, I was all over the place when I was 20 to 25. But you go into relationships with the best intentions, but your foundations are all over the place. And
I was 22 when I got married.
Wow. Yeah. I was not marriage material at 22.
I was 22. I started seeing my husband when I was 17.
Wow. Yeah. So you knew nothing else. Wow. And you were operating from that subconscious programming from your family, from everything else, and you just went out into the world. You did your best. You were successful. You had 2 children, all that stuff, but your inner happiness wasn't there.
Well, I didn't know who I was. Right? Yeah. I didn't know who I was. So considering that, we did an incredible job, right?
I love it.
The point is that wasn't solid because the relationship with myself wasn't solid.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
So I didn't even know who I was. And then I was coming into another relationship expecting to know who he is. And he didn't know who he was either, right? We were so young.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that nobody teaches you at school. Right? Teach you ABC, how to read, 1, 2, 3, how to do math, but nobody teaches you the ABC of how to do relationships.
Right? Imagine how much better life would be if we taught children how to have a good, harmonious relationship with themselves and other people. If we taught them how to earn money, if we taught them how to do all this amazing stuff,
Huge. Well, our daughters, my daughters, they've learned all these skills because they've been heavily into the personal development. I mean, my youngest daughter did her first Tony Robbins event when she was 14.
Wow, I wish I'd been able to start when I was 14. I don't think I'd have been ready, to be fair, but fair play to you for bringing them into it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so the relationship now, obviously, you're a successful health relationship coach. You and your husband. I mean, I see videos, I see your website, which we'll talk about in a bit. I see all of that, but you two are just like this beautiful picture of blissful, harmonious now, right?
And the truth is, Mark, that we still have arguments. Of course we do.
Sure.
Because we are human, and every argument that we have, I can hand on heart now says is less frequent and literally is resolved like that. Why? Because we have tools and the strategies to deal with it now. We understand each other, and this is my mantra with everybody that I work with. Are you choosing love or are you choosing being right? Which one is it?
Lots of people can relate to that, I'm sure. Yeah, lots of people would rather have their ego and be right than actually choose love and acceptance.
And forgive and ask for forgiveness and take accountability.
Yeah.
And go first, lead first. Because a lot of people were like, gosh, you actually got down on your hands and knees and begged for forgiveness. What about him?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
A lot of women have said that to me. A lot of women have said that you've decided.
I ain't doing that for no man.
Exactly. It's counterintuitive, right? Because forgiveness is about releasing you and letting go.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. I think when I got my ego out of the way, my ego. My whole thing with Life Remix was like the collapse of my life, but it was actually the removal of ego, and with the removal of ego, I could move into total acceptance. Could start with myself, forgive everyone, everything, and then start to be loving, and then been married. Been married for 2-3 years now, and been with them for 7-8 years now, and there's great stuff in this. There's great stuff in this, and when you get your relationship right, your intimate relationship right, and then you can get your other relationships right outside of that, life just becomes so much more happier and harmonious, right?
It's beautiful. And if I can just share with you some data, some statistics around this, just evidence, that particularly for men, and I primarily work with executives now, male executives, particularly for men, that when we are not happy in our intimate relationship, our productivity goes down by, do you know what percentage? Can you guess?
Well, I know that in my own previous experiences, that when everything in my previous relationships, when everything was all right, I was 100% productive. And I think when everything was not all right, I was distracted and thinking about like, oh, what's she doing? What's she thinking? What can I, can I fix it? What can all that kind of stuff? I'd say probably, I don't know, 40, 50%, less. I don't know.
The evidence shows that a man whose intimate relationship is not right and is on the rocks, his productivity is reduced by 80%.
Ouch. Ouch for his boss as well, right?
80%, right? And there's some other evidence to show this. Elon Musk and Tony Robbins, their businesses went down at the same time as their divorces.
Yeah. And Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which I'm sure you read and know plenty about, but it's almost like a Bible for me. He says that in that book, he says he's talking about men because it was written 100 years ago and everything. He was focusing on millionaires and men of the time. And he says that a man's most productive years are 45 to 65. And that's because he's made all his mistakes. He's transmuted, they call it sex transmutation, where you actually like stop that energy of like chasing women and the physicality and all that kind of stuff. And you actually find that true love and that true acceptance. And he says, obviously, that a man's choice, a masculine choice of partner, the feminine, can either make or break him. And I think that's your point is exactly what you just said. Because if you're not happy and you're 20% capacity and you're not giving your fullest gift, things are going to go bad for you in every area. And the reason that I'm becoming more successful and the reason that you're certainly successful and up there is because of that solid foundation, that relationship, so I love it. It's so important.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And the other statistic that I often share is that we all know that half of marriages end in divorce. We know that, right? It's a common thing, okay? Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we don't know is that of the 50% of the people that did go through the divorce, there was a survey done to say that actually 70% of those people regret that divorce and wish that if they'd had the right tools, the right strategies, they could have saved that marriage.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of the men that I work with, and these are like multimillionaires, some of them, they said their biggest regret in their life is divorcing the mother of their children.
Wow. Yes, indeed. That's I think that's an important lesson for many of the guys out there to learn. An important statistic to understand that you can, particularly as a masculine partner, you can fix things as long as you turn up, you're present, you offer decisions, you show love, you're strong. I had to learn all this. This is the funny thing. I didn't have that strong masculine presence in my life, so I didn't know it. I've had to read it in books and then go out and practice it. But the more I practiced it, and then we'll come on to how we met in a minute, but the more I practiced it, the more successful I've become, and the more that now I can be happily married and in a great place because I've learned all this stuff, all the stuff you preach and all the stuff in these books. I've learned it all, and I go, yes, all right. My way wasn't. Bob Proctor said to me, "Your way isn't working. Try mine." And I said, yes, Bob. All right, just go for it, mate. Just tell me. And that led me all the way to you. Which is amazing.
Yeah, I love that, Mark, and I love the fact that. What you've shared about your story, and this is what's happened in this century, in this decade. What's happened is because of the rise in divorce, think about your grandparents, there were less divorce then, there was more the polarity, there was more the man went to work, the woman stayed at home, so they had their own roles, right? So that meant the children had role models, and they understood the dynamics of relationship. Okay, it wasn't perfect and there was issues within that, but they had quite clear roles, right? And with the rise in divorce rate, more and more children are being raised by women without the strong role model of a father. And more women are becoming the breadwinners. Nothing wrong in that. Nothing.
No,
But
absolutely.
what's occurring is they thought that they were in their power, in their masculine at work. And actually, the truth is, when you step into your feminine power, that's when you truly, truly command your power, right? Because think about the boardroom. I just give you an analogy for a moment. Think about the boardroom, right? You've got a woman who walks in all suited and booted, and she is ordering everybody about and telling them what to do and how to do it. The energy and the vibration which she's doing that, is that magnetizing people towards her, or is that pushing them away? Right?
Yeah, option B.
Yeah, and then you've got a woman who still suited and booted, but is very much open and very much wanting to listen and learn and then make the decision and consider and ask for help and support. Is that magnetizing or is that pushing away?
Definitely option A.
Yeah, because she's operating in her authentic. Now, I'm not saying that you can't at times. The masculine energy is about doing, getting stuff done, right?
Yeah.
As a mother, you have to use masculine energy to get your kids to school, right? You have to, there's certain things you have to do. So it's not that you don't do it. It's just that then revert back to what's your natural homeostasis, right?
Yeah.
And you know, ladies, when you operate from a real place of authenticity and you're genuinely asking for help and support, there's not a man on this planet that wouldn't help you.
Absolutely
It
right.
doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you're choosing to have help and support.
So I've got the masculine down in all of us is purpose and direction,
Right.
and the feminine in all of us is fullness and love.
Mm.
And when we've got that kind of like, you know, some people will be much more in that purpose and direction, and some people will be much more in that fullness and love.
Yeah.
And it's not a judgment thing. It's just about understanding ourselves. It's about observing ourselves, and it's about then doing, you know, if it's not working, is then talking to people like us and doing something about it. You know, so I think that's amazing. And we've spoken for almost an hour, and I told you we'd be here, didn't I? I told you we'd be talking about this for a long time. I mean, it's incredible, you know, and I know we're even just scratching the surface for myself. You know, I know we're just scratching the surface. But look, let's move on to another question. So 2020 for you. Yeah, not quite the year that we had planned, is it? 2020. But you know, is there any positives for you? What can you take?
Oh, 100%. The first thing I would say, Mark, is that I never plan anything. So it made no difference to me because I absolutely live in the present moment. I live in this moment, and I know people are like, "Well, how can you not plan?" Like coming to Spain the week, like, because I don't worry about the future. And because I don't worry about the future, I'm so open to any opportunity. And what COVID did, and of course, there are people that have struggled and suffered, and I honour, and I'm not for one moment, you know, there are people that have really suffered and lost loved ones. And I myself, in my family, have had quite a serious issue with my father. So it's not that I haven't felt that, but I've chosen to look at it through a different lens. I've chosen to look at it as an opportunity for us to try new things and grow. And as a result, my business has taken off, my husband's business has taken off. We've ended up spending like 3 months in a place where I've always dreamt of being, always wanted to live by the ocean. Always.
Yeah,
right?
Good for you. Yeah, good for you.
So, and people will say, well, that's all right for you, Dimple. I said, no, we made those choices.
Yeah, anyone.
It's not an easy option to like pack up your whole house in a week and just go.
But many people spend too much time worrying about the future or too much time looking back in anger. You know, and it's difficult. I heard a great little story, actually. There's a show on Apple TV, Apple Plus TV, about a coach called Ted Lasso. He's a football coach. And he comes down and he's talking, there's a tackle that goes on, and one of the kids is going to go back and try and get the other guy, and it's all like, a lot of anger. And he calls him over and he says, Sam, come here. And he says, do you know what the happiest animal on the planet is? And Sam's like, what are you talking about, coach? Because you're a football coach, right? But he's basically a life coach. But he says to him, like, do you know what the happiest animal on the planet is? And he says, no, I don't know, coach. He goes, goldfish. And by this time, the kid's like going like, what? So you're talking about like goldfish? I'm trying to play football here. And he says, do you want to know why? And the kid's like, yeah. He goes, 10-second memory. And when you think about a 10-second memory, if we all had a 10-second memory, it was just like, no emotional attachment, just right, we're right here. This is it. This is all we've got, this moment and nothing else. And we just be here and we focus in on exactly what we need to do and we get it done and we don't have worries and we don't have angers. How much better would we be?
100%. 100%, because when we're here and present, we're open to any opportunity. When we're in the past or the future, we're not.
I hear you, sister.
Yeah, exactly. It's so, honestly, and it took a long while for me to get there because I used to spend a lot of time in the past and the future.
Yeah. And the funny thing is the majority of people do. The majority of people, I did. And it led me to deep unhappiness. And it's not anything I would, it's how I coach people. I coach people to not have to, go to those depths that I went to. I coach people to get in the present moment. What's past is prologue. Forgive, forget, move forward, accept, be grateful. Boom, let's go.
Exactly.
Sounds easy, doesn't it?
But it's daily practice, right?
Yeah.
Daily practice. It's not something, it's a muscle that you have to keep practicing. You have to keep flexing that muscle.
Yeah.
And what I would say to your viewers is that if you are looking to get a coach, this is one of the questions I would ask your coach that you're looking to get is, do they have a coach? Do they have somebody that they have mentoring them?
Yeah.
Right? Because if they don't, I would be dubious. Like, how are they growing? Who's looking at their blind spots?
A really good point, because I've got coaches. I've shared this with some of the people on the videos already. I've got coaches for just about everything. I've got coaches for everything, and it's great because at the end of the day, they show me something, and I go, yeah, okay, and then I pass that on to other people, and I help them. It's just a chain. It's a chain of we all help each other.
Right, 100%. Absolutely.
Love it.
So that's what I would say, and feel for whether they're the right person for you.
Yeah, that's important. That synergy is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's there's so many out there, so choose wisely.
Choose wisely is a very, very good piece of advice, Dimple. So look, we could go on all night. I know we could, but we can't.
Mark, thank you.
It's been awesome to see you, by the way. You look really healthy. You look really well. Spain, Portobello's clearly agrees with you. It must be tough out there right now while I'm freezing my knackers up. Anyway.
Actually, there's a thunderstorm going on out there tonight, which is interesting. It's the first one. So
the internet was a bit dodgy there to start with, but I think got through it, which is good. But where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you? Where are you? What are you doing? Come on, give us some info.
Oh, thank you so much. So my website is www.dimple, dimple.love, Love. And on there are all my handles for my Facebook. I have a Facebook group, I have a Facebook page, and I have Instagram, the Love Coach Dimple. And I've got loads of free stuff. In fact, at the moment, I've got on my website, I have a survival guide for lockdown. One for him, one for her. So, and that's absolutely free. So it's a reserved gift. So
a lockdown relationship survival guide. I do feel that many people will be interested in that, Dimple. And that's at dimple.love, yeah?
Yeah, dimple.love. That's it. There's no .com or anything. It's just dimple.
No, I think you've nailed that website. It's a beauty. I love that.
So on my Instagram, I have loads of free videos, actually, tidbits on how to, if you're struggling with things like, I don't know, keeping her happy or any of those sort of things,
And that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. And I think it's so important that you share that story. And I know you do. You share it as a speaker, and you do it all over the world. And I know that when we can all get back in a room together with Harry Singer and the rest of Paul Dorrington and the rest of the team, and Louise, I know we can all get together again and have a catch up. I know we'll be able to help a great many people. Obviously, with Life Remix coming out, I'm looking to help as many people as possible to avoid a crisis or certainly recover from this one. So it's poignant stuff. And as we said, relationship is the absolute foundation. So I just want to say thank you, Dimple, for being with us tonight. If you're going to watch this on catch up, guys, do watch it back. Do watch the whole thing, because Dimple's story is powerful, is beautiful. And you can find her on socials and across her website. But she's a very special woman. So, Dimple, thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you, Mark.
I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.